Section 5.2, flat key signatures. So you know from the last chapter that the proper way to write a major scale is not like this or like that, where we were writing individual accidentals in front of notes. But instead, the proper way to write a major scale is something like this, where you take all of those flats in the case of this chapter, or sharps in the case of last chapter, and you summarize all of them together in this key signature at the beginning of a musical line. So this is a proper way to notate an E-flat major scale. You have the key signature at the beginning, and then you have all of your notes along the way. So a couple of things to note here. These three flats, we knew that from the previous section, E-flat major had a B-flat in it, it had an E-flat, and it had an A-flat in it. So these flats in the key signature, they live precisely on the notes B, E, and A in the staff. So for instance, here's that B. Notice how it's situated right where a B would be. This is an E, and really it's representing an E-flat, located right where an E would be on the staff, and this is an A-flat, living right where the A is on the treble clef staff. So they're in precise locations. And just like with sharps, these three flats mean that it's not just that particular B or that particular E or that particular A that are to be played as B-flat, E-flat, and A-flat respectively, but it's all B's, E's, and A's that are to actually be played or sung as B-flats, E-flats, and A-flats. It doesn't matter how high or how low. So this B would still be performed as a B-flat. This A, for instance, would still be performed as an A-flat. So it doesn't matter how high or how low you go. They're all going to be B-flat, E-flat, and A-flat. Now, as you probably surmised from the previous section, we have a pattern for flats in key signatures. So just a quick tidbit, it's actually the reverse order of the sharp. So if you look at this diagram here, you can see the sharps going on in reverse order. But I recommend that you just memorize it separate from your sharps. Memorize B-flat, E-flat, A-flat, D-flat, G-flat, C-flat, F-flat. When you are reciting these, make sure you say flat after each one. That keeps it distinct from the sharps pattern, which is, of course, a separate pattern. You can also think B to GCF if you want a quick little mnemonic to get these down. So again, if you have one flat in the key signature, it's always going to be B-flat. If you have two flats in the key signature, it's going to be those two. If you have four flats in the key signature, it's going to be those four, and so on. So in this exercise, this is pretty easy. You can pause the video if you like. If there are four flats in a key signature, what are they? Well, you're going to use B-flat, E-flat, A-flat, D-flat, G-flat, C-flat, F-flat, which is your order, and you just pick the first four of those. So it actually spells out the word bead, but make sure you are still writing in your flat symbols after each one. Really important. If there are five flats in a key signature, well, of course, it's going to be the same four to begin, and then a G-flat beyond that. If there are just two flats, of course, just B-flat and E-flat. Now, when you're writing key signatures involving flats, and this is a little typo here, and that's flats, they also need to appear in conventional locations on the staff. So just like with sharps, they live in specific locations on the treble clef and on the bass clef. So let's go after that on the next page. So when you have a set of flats in treble clef, you don't just write them out willy-nilly based on the B to GCF stuff. So you don't just write them out like, oh, well, there's a B up there, and there's an E-flat, and there's an A-flat, and there's D-flat, and there's a G-flat. Of course, they look really haphazard that way, and they're not really as easily understood as when you have them in this nice, pretty configuration as we have over here. So let me walk you through how to write this out. So for the flats, just think start in the middle and then zigzag. It's a pretty easy concept to master here. So you know your order of flats, B-flat, E-flat, A-flat, D-flat, G-flat, C-flat, F-flat, and you just start kind of in the middle. And in fact, in the treble clef, it's exactly in the middle. There is your B-flat. Then you're going to just zig and zag. You're going to start by zigging upward. So here is an E-flat. Then you're going to go down to an A-flat, zig upward to a D-flat, down to a G-flat, up to a C-flat, and down to an F-flat. So notice how I am changing direction each time. So just zigging and zagging from one to the next. Now in bass clef, that zigging and zagging pattern still applies. It's just that the flats are in different locations in the bass clef, and that's what we expect, right? So here, still start kind of in the middle. Now in the bass clef, the B that's close to the middle is right here. And then you're going to zig upward for your E flat, down to your A flat, and so on. So you end up with an F flat that feels like it's borderline too low, but that's correct. That's exactly the location that you want it in. So this is that little summary here. They start with a B flat, which is kind of centrally located. Then you go up, then you go down, then up, then down, and so on, all the way until you've hit all of your 7 flats. Or, as this exercise asks you to do, you may not need to hit all 7 of them. You may just need to hit the first 2 or the first 4. So I encourage you to pause the video at this point, see if you can work out these answers, and then I'll resume momentarily. So checking in on these answers, we're in bass clef. Make sure to take that extra half second and read your clef. So 2 flats in bass clef, we know it's going to be B flat and E flat. So there's our B flat, and we zig upward to get the next one. And we're done. We don't need to write out any more than that because we're just doing 2. Now we got to do all 7. So B flat, zig up, then down, up, then down, up, and then down. 4 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat. And now into our treble clef line. Here, the B flat, it's right smack dab in the middle. So that is our first flat. Then we go up, then we go down. So that gives us the 3 that we wanted. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat gives us the 6 that we want. And if we encounter a key with just 1 flat, that's exactly where it lives.